Good day, everybody. It's Riaan van der Bergh here from the FEDSAS Center for Technology. We thought it apt to have a quick interview that we can share around the compliance requirements for the POPIA Act, POPIA as it's commonly known, or just straight POPI. And we're very glad to be talking to our legal officer in FEDSAS, Juané van Merwe. The Center for Technology is taking an aim on this, but we want to clarify and classify and make it very clear that all data on electronic format is under scrutiny in the POPI arena. But that is not 100% of data at a school. So there's a paper process, a paper side to collecting data and processing data. So although we're framing this in the Center for Technology, please keep an open mind that it's all data at school and not just electronic data. So with that being said, Juané, welcome. Thank you for joining us and sharing a few thoughts. I think it's important. There's some strict timelines that's coming closer. There's an understanding that needs to take place, and there's some responsibility and actions that we can take. So if you want to share with us your thoughts on how school can be more POPI ready, and by when, we really appreciate that. So thanks for your time and thanks for sharing with us. I'm going to allow you to take over and share your short presentation with us.
Thank you, Riaan, and good afternoon. Oh, yeah, Riaan, I know you've said that the POPI is applicable to all types of data and information, but I have to say, I think we've moved into an electronic era, and that I do believe that almost 80% of data is now being kept electronically. So, yeah, thanks for having me in the Center of Technology, and I think it's very, very relevant if we consider the security safeguards, if we look at how to become POPIA compliant, what to look out for, and so thanks for having me, Riaan. What's popping? We have 2 months to comply with the POPIA Act, and it's not a lot of time. I think 10 months went by so quickly that we now only have a few weeks left to ensure that we become POPI compliant. So, Riaan, first of all, I think it's important for us to understand what's the rationale behind the POPI Act. We have to understand where we're coming from so we can understand why we're doing what we're doing and why we have to implement the prescripts given to us by the POPI Act. And the main reason is the right to privacy that every and each person will have. Now, that's a right that's envisaged in our constitution, and that's basically the basis upon which the POPIA Act was built. So everything we do, in all of the measures that we implement, we have to do that. The aim and the reason why we're doing this is to respect the person, all the persons, the children, the educators, the parents, all of the data that we do work with is to ensure that we do respect the right to privacy of that person's whose data we are working with. Now, secondly, the other side of our data protection rights and the rights that people do have specifically regarding data is the access to information. Now, there's a good or a great balancing act that we have to ensure that we do succeed in. We have to ensure that we balance the right to privacy against the right access to information, and that's why we also have the Promotion of Access to Information Act. Now, that's not what today's topic is about, but we must keep it in mind that whilst we have this obligation to protect the right to privacy, there's also the other side. So it's a balancing act that we have to ensure that we keep throughout. And there might be circumstances under which we will have to grant access to specific information. So we must keep that in mind. Now, if we look at the purpose of POPI, if I can sum it up in one sentence, it's basically to ensure that we protect personal information when we process it. A few important words that I have emphasized there is the protection of personal information when it's being processed. So we're going to have a quick look at what is personal information, because we can only protect if we understand what it is that we are supposed to protect. But just to sum up what the purpose is of POPI, it's basically the protection of personal information. And what the POPI Act does, it basically regulates the way through which we are processing personal information. And for that, the POPI Act gives us 8 conditions which we must abide by and strive towards throughout the whole process when processing personal information. So just with that in mind, Riaan, I'm going to immediately jump to the next slide. What is personal information? Now, personal information in terms of the POPI Act is divided into 2 different categories. The first of all is our normal personal information, and then secondly, it's our special personal information. Now, your normal personal information, I'd like to call that your identifiers. It's any type of information that can identify a person. The fact that I have blonde hair, that I'm residing in Bloemfontein, that I might have I support the Cheetah rugby team. All of those information is personal information, and that I have a right, and I can claim that that type of information must be protected. Now, the reason why I have highlighted the second category, it's because it's of specific importance to schools as well. Now, the personal information of children has specific rules which applies to that information. And the rule of thumb here is that the personal information of children may not be processed unless it is within those specific rules as is provided by the POPI Act. Just to give you an example, the POPI Act states that you may only process the personal information of children if you have the permission of the parents to do so, or if it's required by law to process that types of information. So those information is very important to take cognizance thereof. And then also we must remember that we have various forms of personal information. Information, as we've said in the beginning, it can appear in different formats. For instance, in audio, we have photographs. We're live streaming sport as it takes place. So it must be remembered that we have various forms. It's no longer just our written form of format of information. It comes in different types of forms. Now, if we want to ensure that we comply with POPI, it goes hand in hand with a bit of planning, of course. Now, very important is we have to know first before we start doing. If we don't know what we don't know, we can't start implementing the necessary safeguards and safety measures and so forth. So therefore, FEDSAS recommends 4 simple steps to ensure that you do become POPI compliant. The first one is, first of all, to assess the risk. To assist schools in assessing the risk, we have drafted a risk compliance list to assist schools to kick off whether they have certain measures in place, where are they still lacking. We, for instance, look at digital security, the physical security, administrative and operational security, all of those security measures that must be in place to ensure that you safeguard the information in your possession. Secondly, important is that schools must look at the information governance model. We sometimes tend to think that it's only the information officer who has an obligation to ensure compliance when we process information in our schools, but that is not the case. It goes a lot broader than that. And then once you have assessed the risk, you know who your role players are. You can start to take action. And then finally, we have to ensure sustainability. We can't just kick off when the shot goes off, then start running 100 meters on full speed, and then we lose our speed throughout the race. We have to ensure sustainability. Now, this is our information governance model in our schools. Now, I do urge schools to look at your own governance model, but this is more or less how it will look. At the top here we have our school principal, who is our information officer. The equivalent to the CEO of a company will be your information officer. In the case of schools, that is your school principal. And please remember that your information officer must be registered with your information regulator. And that can now take place either by a manual submission of a form, or the information regulator will launch its online platform as well, where you can register your information officer. Very important, we can't expect our school principal to deal with the compliance alone. We do know that they're busy people. So the information officer do have the option to delegate to deputy information officers as well. It's important to identify which person in your schooling environment would be best suited for this job. It's our recommendation that you look at your deputy principals or your senior educators within your schools, but it's up to you to see who fits the profile best and who will assist the principal best in this regard. You must also register your deputy information officer. Our school governing bodies regarded the responsible party. They're the ones who decide how the processing will take place and so forth. So if we look at our information governance model, that's where our governing body will lie. And then finally, that's probably where the most of the processing of the information takes place. It's in these the three components here below: our educators, our non-educators, and then the support. Support can be your committees, your school management teams, and so forth. I mean, we know that our educators, they all have WhatsApp groups. So it's important for them to know what is required of them. How do they safeguard information communicated on those types of groups? Can educators now share pictures taken in a classroom on those types of groups? We do know educators work a lot with the marks of our learners. It has to be inserted into certain systems in the school. So our non-educator component, we have our financial officer who works with very sensitive information, school fee exemptions. So it's important that we get the buy-in from everyone within our information governance model to ensure that we comply with the POPIA Act. And then just outside of our school, we do know that sometimes we outsource our information. To give you an example, use FEDSAS as an example. We'll outsource the personal information of our parents to FEDSAS, and they through this app we communicate with our parents. So the POPIA Act now requires of us of the responsible party to ensure that when they outsource information to a third party, this third party will also be able to comply with the POPIA Act. So there's an obligation on our school governing body to ensure that, to ask the questions, and to make sure that there are this necessary security measures is also being taken by the third party. And then, of course, our Department of Education, they're not exempted from the POPIA Act as well. We do know that a lot of information is being provided on SASAMS, and we do know that the department must also ensure that those information provided in that format is also being protected. And schools must also act smartly in the way that the information is being uploaded onto SASAMS, not to just send CDs with information to the department. Make sure that you take the necessary security measures when uploading the information. Yeah, now Riaan, that's just a broad picture of what personal information is, how we're supposed to deal with it, who works with it. But let's just have a quick practical look at things now. There's basically two approaches that one can take to become POPIA compliant. The first is a risk-based. Now, it's impossible to cover any and all risks that there is within your school if you look at the processing of data. Riaan, sorry, can you give me 1 second? I see my computer battery is low. Just want to check the cable here.
No problem. We'll wait for you. Technology works when it's great. Otherwise, we stick with what we have. Let's see if that goes. Thanks, Juané. Are you sorted now? Are you not load shedded?
There we go, Riaan. Luckily not. It was just a disconnection at with my cable here, but I'm back. Riaan, yes, yeah. So very important. If we look at the risk-based approach, it's not possible to cover any and all of the risks. Schools must identify the biggest risks and then start from there to ensure that you cover the biggest risks and have the necessary measures in place for that. And then secondly, a compliance-based approach. Now, schools do not have an excuse not to become 100% paper compliant. And that's also where FEDSAS will play a big role within your schools. We can assist you to become 100% paper compliant, and we can give the necessary advice and guidance into how to identify the risk and what to do to ensure that you become cover all of the risk within your school. Now, FEDSAS has developed a POPIA compliance toolkit. The most important document here is our practical guide to POPIA. This is the guide which will take you step by step through the process of how to become POPIA compliant, and we have a lot of supporting documents. So the guide refers to all of these documents throughout. For instance, we refer you to a consent form which parents must complete. We have the POPIA manual which schools must ensure and implement in their schools. All of the different policies that you do need to become POPIA compliant. Now, yeah, Riaan, just to conclude again, very important to remember that we are abiding by the rules and regulations of POPIA because we do respect every person's right to privacy. Secondly, we want to get that balancing act just right to ensure that we get the balance between the right to privacy as well as access to information. Understand the purpose of the POPIA Act, and we do want to ensure that through the processing of personal information, we will be guided, and we will ensure that we look at what POPIA requires of us to ensure that we work responsibly with all of the information in our possession.
Thanks, Juané. Well done. Yeah, I think that's a lot of information, hard hitting, a few strong bullets there. I think what I take out of it is we've got to just put our minds into it. It's not foreign. It's not far. POPIA is not just a legal process for a lot of people that speak legalese, but it's every day close to the data that we manage. So it's protection, and we know all about protection in South Africa. We've got gates, we've got alarms, we've got locks, we understand the protection and safety issue. The second one is personal information, specific mention of learner information at a school, but also parents and staff and all information that's available, exemption, discipline, marks, all these things are personal information. So it is in the school space. And the third one is the P of processing. Whatever we process, we've got to process responsibly. So I've listened. I think I've taken into account. Very important. The principal is key, and the governing body is the responsible party. So we're talking to governing body members. If you're a FEDSAS member, get our compliance toolkit from the website. Talk to your provincial manager. If you're not a FEDSAS member, contact us. Businesses out in the commercial space are selling POPIA compliance processes and kits, and you can get that from FEDSAS as a member. So thank you for your time, Juané. Well done. Thank you for sharing with us. I think let's encourage our schools not to just be compliant, but drive them to a higher level of governance, of best practice, and not just do enough not to get into trouble, but really be responsible with the information we have. And let's embrace this world where data is going to be the next biggest gold mine. We're talking about metadata hidden behind actual data. We're talking about mega data and the tsunami of data. So there's a lot of information that's coming our way, and we can use that sensibly to better our processes. Juané, thank you for sharing with us. We'll be talking soon again on this topic. Thank you from the Center for Technology side, and well done to our legal services. Have a great day, everybody. Cheers.
Bye.